This is ContactTalkRadio.com, consciousness in action, and you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to Medicine and Health with Dr. Paul Anderson. This is a show about opening up the often mysterious world of how doctors think. The goal? To empower the listener to gain access to the best health care possible.
Welcome to Medicine and Health with Dr. Paul Anderson. That's me. I'm Dr. Paul. And today, if you're listening live, it's November 1st, 2018. But you may be listening some other time in the future, and that's always exciting to talk to people in the future. So today we are at the end of 8 programs about energy. The first 4 were more, I think, maybe a little easier to wrap your mind around, and that's physical energy and how do I feel energetic or tired or something like that. And then we segued into what I called the other kind of energy, and the other, in quotes, but it really shouldn't be because it's all energy. And we talked about, for 3 programs, different ways of looking at interpersonal energy, the basis for how, for example, you might enter a room and there's somebody in there that you know or you don't know, but they actually raise your level of energy, or maybe you go into another room and there's somebody there who actually, lowers your level of energy. In the program last week, we called those people energy vampires, for lack of a better word, but it's a funny term. But we all know people in both categories. And the other thing that we talked about in the 3 programs is there's a lot of this that goes on between helping professions and people they're trying to help. And so you can, if you're on the patient end of things, you can feel sometimes you have better experiences with some doctors than others. And if you're on the, helper end, a nurse, doctor, fireman, whoever, you can, kind of feel what's going on with people, but also you can have rough days and wind up with your energy kind of sap. So we did all that in the first 3 programs. And what I worked up to in the last program was the idea that something beyond that, or maybe the way to use this thing that we feel person to person, whether we're with them or whether we're talking to them on the phone across the world or the country. And there's a whole world of energetic medicine. And so last time I introduced this paper, actually, was written by it's a peer-reviewed paper in big journal, written by a number of big-time scientists looking at the evolution of our understanding of how all this business works. Now, we don't really need to be able to explain all of the mechanics of it, but the reason I introduced the paper was to, for someone like myself who kind of came from, well, I know the mechanics of how a body and a brain works and all that stuff, and I kind of get all these things. And I know what I feel when I'm around people, and I know I've seen people and I've had people do more energetic type healing with me, and it's been very profound. I never had a great, sort of explanation for it from at least the Western point of view. And so the paper we talked about last week, they're really worked through. It's a super deep, like these are super big brain people, and there's a whole bunch of them, and they really go through scientifically how, the way that we understand physics and energy and all that stuff has evolved so much, since any of us learned about it. And there's so much more that we don't know, but that leads to this idea that on the quantum level, there's these connections between people or people and animals, et cetera, that I think that's a large basis for what we see with both the simple thing where you walk in a room and the person either brings you down or lifts you up, and then all the way to energetic healing and energy medicine. So today, because although I have experienced it and I know what it feels like, it's not an area I am experienced and expert in. So it turns out that Cameron Steele, the co-owner of CTR Radio Network, who we do an interview every month if we can, is here, and in his other world or other life, he actually practices energetic healing, etc. And so I thought we'd turn the tables this time, and instead of him asking me questions, I'm going to ask him questions because he's done this and he has examples, and that's I think that's what we learn from is examples. So welcome, Cameron.
Well, thanks for having me, Paul. It's quite. It's really cool actually being interviewed by you instead of me interviewing you. I'm humbled in your presence and your big brain. Believe me.
Well, you've been waiting for 3 years for this. It's every other interview has been exactly the opposite. So for those listening at home, Cameron said, "Well, are there any topics you want to talk about?" I said, "Well, you're the expert, so I'll just ask you questions."
Well, the energy led us this way.
Is it? We just blame the energy.
Just blame the energy of it all. That's right.
There's nothing there. So I think that, just because I know you produce all the programs, but you've got a million programs, and just to kind of take you through the trajectory of what the listeners have heard if they've listened to all 8 of these, or 7 before this. We had 4 that were a little more on the kind of the physical plane, sort of inside of you as a person, what makes energy and all that, and what makes it lower and higher, and more of the the health oriented parts of it, physical health, and a little bit mental but more physical. And then we did 3 after that. On the first one was really what's the bridge between energetics that you or I might feel with another person and this physical field that we know that we generate. You can see signals from your heart across the room and your brain and everything. There's like all these signals that go out. So that was sort of the first bridge, and what I said in the last program was the funny part about that is because that was the bridge I kept talking about. In this big scientific paper, they said that was like the most rudimentary kindergarten level of energy and explaining energy, but I felt like I needed to start there because that's almost everyone can feel that. Like we've all walked in a room and felt it's either an up or a down room, and all of that. Yeah. But what I wanted to kind of get into with you, because you've learned and practiced different types of energy work with people, is just kind of that next step that's more at the subquantum or quantum level. That's both something you do maybe in the presence of somebody else or different practices, and then practices that are actually you're not even in the same place. Yeah. Sometimes really freak people out that can happen, but maybe we could start with just a discussion of, I know there's, a bunch of energetic type work, but what's maybe the top 5 or 7 that, that most people would probably have heard of?
Well, sure. But let me start off with this because, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking, well, it'd be good for listeners to also know a little background about me and, okay, so you're doing the radio show and you've got a radio station. What's that got to do with healing?
Good plan.
And
Good
so
plan.
I thought, well, as you're talking, I'm listening to this, and I'm, it's been a while since I've actually been interviewed, because usually I'm just having a conversation about stuff like this, and this is really a quite nice change. So thank you first off for allowing me to be here and do this with you. So I guess it was probably early 90s I got involved in the metaphysical world. And metaphysics fascinated me to no end. I was, my mother, she was reading the likes of Emmett Fox while she was pregnant with me. And Emmett Fox, if you have not read any of Emmett Fox's books, then I totally recommend looking up Emmett Fox and read some of his books. Very metaphysically minded author and one of the most brilliant authors when it comes to this kind of information. So I was always I had that, if to excuse the pun, that kind of energy in my life, if you will. Already, I was very curious from a young age to what's going on. I can remember being a young lad, and we were walking through Polar Park Mall in Winnipeg, and I saw all these different colored people. I'm serious. Like there was blue, there was yellow, there was green, there was, and my mom was like looking at me, going, "Well, I'm not sure where you see the green people from." And I said, "That guy over there, look at him. He's green. He's all green." So
and to be fair, Mom didn't take you to the doctor or anything like
that.
No,
she kind of just laughed, because she kind of knew what I was talking about, but she didn't really, she doesn't remember a lot of this stuff now. But she has a vague memory of it. But in fact, I think I said to her just a number of months ago or maybe last year we talked about it, and she says, "Oh, I have a vague memory of that. Yes. Do you still see colors?" I said, as a matter of fact, I do, but now I can turn it off and turn it on when I want to, But what I was really seeing was the aura of people. Everybody gives off an aura.
Exactly, yeah.
And, and it's always changing. There's no, I don't want to digress going backwards into something, but the aura, just to clear things up, the aura is based on where you are in your life in the moment. It's an emotional thing. If you're feeling sad and you're down and you've got low energy, then you're going to have a certain color that's going to reflect that. Based on, we could get into the chakra colors as well and all that stuff, but we won't go there just yet. So that fascinated me. Now, fast forward a number of years, I was driving driving buses, and I'd asked to, well, let me see. Should I start there, Paul? There's a lot of things where I can go. I guess I would have to say, let's start with an event that I went to. It was a healing event that I went to. It was a couple of different speakers, some musicians, a comedy guy named Matisha who creates comedy out of metaphysics and has fun with people who channel and are mediums and stuff like that. And he makes fun of all these people. It was good fun. Anyways, this was a weekend workshop, and I was fascinated already. I was more curious than anything else about energy, and I was curious about, people channeling. Who are they talking to? That's what I was really there for, to find out who are they talking to. And this guy claimed to channel a couple of angels, and I was like, okay, I'm not sure about this. I just need to go and find out what this is about. So I'm sitting there with a friend, and this guy's on stage, and he's talking about he's got this nickname called the Sun, who he's channeling energetically, right? And I'm sitting there next to my friend, and I whispered to him, like a very whisper. I said something like, "Oh yeah, is this guy really talking about who he's talking about?" That's what I'm saying, and I'm whispering it to my friend's ear, like, really, an angel? I mean, I only wish I could talk to an angel. The questions I have, So all of a sudden the guy stops and interrupts me. Well, and I know that he can't hear me because I'm just whispering to my friend. All of a sudden the guy stops and he interrupts me and he says, "So you don't believe, do you?" Like,
and he's looking right at you.
He's looking right at me. I'm just like, what? So anyways, that was a bit of a process around that. And I thought, well, maybe he's come some kind of magician. Maybe I was talking louder than what I thought, or, who knows, right? Anyways, right. It was at the end of the day, it was a good workshop that day, and we had practiced meditation and doing all the kinds of stuff. And it was good. I met some really interesting people and stuff like that. And then they had some massage tables in the back that people could go down and lie down and get some hands-on healing. And I thought, now at the time, I'm single, okay? I'm like looking around, there's girls everywhere, they're all spiritual type girls everywhere. And I'm thinking, well, this is pretty good. This is a place to be if you're single, So that's where my mind is at, okay? It was my friend that said, "Hey, come, there's all kinds of girls here, and, it's great information." And I was kind of girl crazy for a while there, So, there was this, and I saw these massage tables in the back, and it was all there. There was all for hands down. You can lie down on the table. You're fully clothed, of course, and they're just putting hands on you. And there was this beautiful blonde back there that I thought was just gorgeous, and I was like, oh, that'd be awesome to have her hands on me. So, so I go back to the table. I'm lying down, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. This is good, and I can feel people's hands on me. Like there's probably about 5 people standing around the table now who have got their hands on. Now I've got my eyes closed, so I'm just enjoying the moment of it all, right? I'm just enjoying it. I can feel my feet being held. I can feel my hands being held. I can feel my head's in somebody's hands. I'm like, oh man, this is good. I could just fall asleep. That's what I'm thinking. Okay. And then the thought occurred to me. I said, I wonder if that girl that I was looking at got her hands on me. I hope she's got her hands somewhere, like not on my feet or something like that, And I opened my eyes. Paul, there's nobody standing around me.
So
there's nobody there.
So that now did that initially freak you out?
That kind of freaked me out a bit. Kind of freaked me out. I was like, because I opened my eyes, there's nobody standing around, and I could feel myself not being able to sit up. I could not sit up. I was being held down. That's what it felt like to me. Now this workshop that I went to was all about healing. Was all about releasing the past, releasing stuff, and just being present with the love, the God, whatever you want to call it. Okay, and so the energy of that room was set up like that. I mean, everybody was there for the exact same reason. So there was a huge amount of acceptance going into this room, okay, into this big ballroom at this hotel. I mean, there was probably 250, 300 people there. And I could not lift my head up for the life of me. And so finally, I mean, it's not that I couldn't. It's just that when I tried, I felt like I was being pushed back down again. Mm-hmm. And I know that if I really pushed it, I could have got back up again, and everything would have been fine. Like I would have, just like, wow, I felt so heavy. I felt heavy, and I felt like I couldn't lift my head up because there was hands on my head. And so I stood up for a second. Then this guy walks over to me. He says, "You okay?" And I said, "I'm freaking out, man." I said, I couldn't lift my head up off the table. I said, I felt like there was 10 people around me, put their hands all over me, and there's no one here. And so, he showed me where everybody was, and everybody had their hands up facing towards me, but they weren't touching me. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Hands, healing hands. Okay. So I started looking into this, and I was like, I want to do that, because if that's what it felt good to me, and I felt really good. I mean, after the initial shock that nobody was standing around me, I took a deep breath, and the guy said, I think his name was Scott, told me, he says, "Cameron, take a deep breath and just be here with us in the moment." I was like, okay. And all of a sudden I just felt really grounded, and really, I just felt good. I felt like it was just like, okay, that felt good. And I felt energized. I felt like I just felt a sense of renewal, or rejuvenation, if you will, And I thought, I got to look into this. So I started asking questions about what they were doing and how they were doing it. A couple of people were doing a modality called Reiki, and some people were doing just a modality called spiritual healing, which is, working with spirit or God or the universe, whatever you want to call it, to give the healing energy, And it was just more or less to help you relax. And, some people, they say they worked with their spirit guides, and it fascinated me because of how I felt afterwards.
Sure.
And so I decided, okay, well, I'm gonna take a Reiki course. And now at that time, 90s, Reiki seemed to be like the thing people did, And I thought, it had a lot of rules and regulations to it. And I was like, something about rules and regulations when it comes to energy didn't fit somehow, like you have to do it a certain way, and you have to do these circles. And I'm like, just something about that doesn't make sense to me. But, I thought, I'll just accept it and go on. So I became a Reiki practitioner, and I started doing some hands-on work with people. And but it wasn't enough for me. I had to know more. I had to I had to understand more of what was going on. Like, okay, it's an Asian tradition, and I was like, okay, well, that's good, but what else can there be? And then a lot of the stuff that I was doing back then, now it's people are starting. Back then it was kind of woo woo. Now it's not really woo-woo anymore, So we were really, the people that did this in the 90s are pioneers in this, and the people that they learned from in the 90s were pioneers way back when, like it's been an ongoing process, And then I started asking questions about thought and is what we think about, can that be healing and stuff like that, and then, of course, Dr. Emoto came out with this whole blood thing. You heard about his experiment with water and blood, right?
Right, yeah.
And, putting words on just putting intention behind something and changing the molecule structure of water just based on putting love or hate and stuff like that. So I really wanted to know more about healing and the healing aspect of it and what we put in our body. So what do? I decide I'm going to teach a workshop about this stuff. So, not knowing a lot about it, I thought, what's the best way to learn is teach a workshop about it. So, okay, let's do it. And, I didn't really charge much for the workshop. I think I charged like $20 for my time per person. I had probably 10 people, and I created this experiment that I'd heard about, but not really, and not really, knowing much about it. I didn't really do my research per se. I just heard about it. I thought, I'll give that a try, see how that works. And so I had these two big bowls of those big bowls that restaurants put salad in, like they're like a buffet type style. These two big silver bowls. And
sure,
yeah. So I've got some salad, and I wrote on the bottom of one bowl. I wrote, I hate making salad, like is what I said. I wrote it down the bottom of the bowl. I hate making salad. And I just didn't take any care in making the salad. I was just like thinking hateful thoughts while I was making the salad. I mean, I was really intentionally just trying to see if people could pick up energetically what each bowl was about. And so I made that salad. Then I made the other salad, and I was very meticulous. I cut the salad up a certain way. I cut the salad the same way I cut the other salad up, but I was very careful about how I was doing it. Not that I wasn't careful on it, but it just had a different vibe to it, if you will. Okay, and so I put all of them, and I put them on the table. Well, nobody ate the salad that I hated making. Nobody. I asked everybody in the room, and now I made enough salad in there that if they only ate out of one bowl, everybody could get served. And if the other bowl did get eaten, that's okay. It's a throwaway, not a big deal. At the time, that's what I'm thinking. Probably a waste now, but it is what it is. So when I asked everybody why they chose the left side over the right side, they just said it felt better. I said, it looks the same. And they said, yeah, it looks the same. And but for some reason, I just felt like I should eat the bowl on the left, not the right. And then I emptied the salad bowl on the right, and I turned them both upside down and showed them. And everybody was like, oh, my gosh. I said, I know. Now, think about this when we're doing healing. Now, the reason I relate this story is because when we're doing healing, when anybody is doing healing on a person, what that person is thinking about that's doing the healing on the other person matters in a way that what are you transferring to that other person? What kind of energy are you putting towards that other person? So when somebody does healing work, it's very, very important that when you see a person and to go to get some healing work, that you feel like that person is there for you and not in judgment of you, or not thinking bad thoughts or thinking, oh, here we go again. Going to have another hands-on healing and this person needs to be healed and blah, blah, blah. It's very important for the practitioner to have clear and present thoughts of what their duty is as a practitioner, as a healer, because energy can be transferred so easily into something that you don't want it to be. And this is why healing, this is why some people experience fantastic healing this is my theory, by the way, and my theory alone, is that the reason people experience amazing healing from healing hands on from people versus some that don't, is because it's all about the practitioner, and it always is about the practitioner. Because to me, I can sit here. You don't have to believe in what I do. I have to believe in what I do.
Right.
So
right.
if I'm sitting here going, well, you don't believe in what I do, so why should I don't know if this is going to work or not. Well, forget about it. It's not going to work because you're already questioning whether it's going to work or not.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I feel like, when I've experienced that, it is very much a two-way street, you know, and, it sometimes you have somebody who's oppositional or whatever, and, you can do your best, and there's some people that sort of, you win them over, and then there's the others that it almost makes it worse. And, they've done a lot of studies showing that believing in the therapy that you're doing is one of the biggest determinants of outcome. If you don't believe in it, it's like, it
really is. I've woken up some days where when I was doing healing work like that, I've woken up some days and I've had appointments for the whole day. I've had to just take extra time for myself. If I'm not feeling into it, I have to take extra time for myself and just get back to the present. If I'm caught up in life, for instance, the last thing I should be doing is working on somebody and helping them with their issues if I've got my own going on, because that really is, it's about the integrity of the person that's facilitating the energy or channeling the energy. And, somebody's saying, well, where's the energy coming from? Well, the energy is coming from source. It's coming from God, the universe, whatever you believe out there, whatever you believe in. For me, I call it what it is. I call it the source, God. It comes from God. We don't want to get into all the discussion about God, but I'm just saying, I'm not interested in taking the credit for the healing. I'm just a facilitator of what the possibilities are, because there's no guarantee in energy, in hands-on energy, but I don't go into a session thinking there's no guarantees. I go into the session when I'm working with somebody going, oh yeah, this whatever ailment they have is going to dissipate and it's going to disappear. And if I have any doubts that's not going to happen, then I take extra time with them until I can feel myself going, oh yeah, it's actually working now. I can remember a time, you were asking about examples at one point. I can, and maybe I'm digressing a bit, but Jaden, my oldest rather. This was years ago, Paul. Probably, gosh, I don't even know how old he was. He was a young boy anyways, very young, 4 or 5 years old or something like that. If Lucia was here, she'd know how old he was. I can't remember. But anyways, I was going to the store and I took him with me, and he was sitting in the middle seats of the minivan we had, and he decided that instead of coming out the side door, which I had opened up for him, he was going to crawl through the center and come out daddy's side on the driver's side. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Yeah, come on out. And, I'm thinking to myself, I wasn't really paying attention. I was just more or less going, okay, come on out the driver's side. And then when he was grabbing on to come out, he put his hands, and you can see where this is going to go. He put his hands around the edge of the left-hand side of where the driver's door was, and then he was going to push himself out. Okay, and as he did that, I closed the side door, slamming it on his fingers, and the wailing sound out of his mouth, Paul, was excruciating to my ears. I looked down on the ground to see if I cut his fingers off, because that's what I thought happened.
Yeah.
And, sure enough, being that young, his fingers were pretty nimble, and his bones were pretty soft still. So they just squished his hand in the door, but there was a mark. And right away I had done, this was probably 2004, 2005 that this happened. I think it was in 2003, I became a matrix energetics practitioner, which is another modality of healing, okay? Mm-hmm. And I right away did some matrix energetics on him instantly. I said, give me your hand. And so I started doing this matrix energetics on him and started doing matrix energetics teaches you how to work in other dimensions of reality and being able to visualize something different than what's happening in the present to bring something that's, opposite of maybe what's happening. Anyways, something small, I worked on him, and, within minutes he stopped crying, and I said, how's your hand? He says, a little sore. I said, well, give it some time. It'll be okay, but as soon as I put my hands on him, it was instant, like, stop crying. And he says, okay, my hand's not sore anymore. And I said, how's your hand? He says, not sore anymore. I said, sure? He says, maybe just a little bit, not much. It's okay. There was no redness. There was no mark. And so we went to the store, and I couldn't help but feel bad. I felt like I just, wasn't paying attention to him, and I was just like, shit, And so I took him home, and I told his mom what happened, and his mom said, oh my gosh. I said, I know. I said, I feel terrible, but I said, he's okay. He's laughing. He's having a good time with the cat or whatever. And his mom calls him over, and she says, let me see your hand. Well, he showed her the opposite hand. And I said, well, that's not the hand that it happened on. He says, oh yeah, right. It was this one. I said, does it hurt anymore? He says, no. He says, but the thing is if I remember this correctly, he kept seeing Mickey Mouse in his mind. And what's interesting, Paul, is that matrix energetics, to the short version of it, let's say for instance you hurt your shoulder and you say, hey, oh, can you come over and do some matrix energetics on me? Okay, well, I'm going to tap into your energy, and I'm going to find out what makes you feel good, what makes you feel alive, what makes you feel like, what gives you, what is the thing that makes you feel like you're having fun in your life. And if I can tap into that correctly, I'm going to place that energy of that into your shoulder. Well, for Jaden, it was Mickey Mouse. So I kept putting pictures of Mickey Mouse in Disneyland into the area of where I slammed his fingers on, because that brought him happiness and joy. And so, of course, that was that. No problem after that. And anytime, in fact, he's still, to this day, he's 17 now. To this day, he still asks me for matrix energetics to work with his headaches once in a while. And while they're a little tougher these days to work on his headaches, we still manage to get through them. And it always takes a little extra time to get through them. And some days I'm not in the place to be able to do that, but I'll do it anyways, and I'll work with him until I can feel like I'm getting there, getting through to his headaches, because he does have them once in a while. So yeah, that's just a couple of modalities, Reiki and matrix energetics. There's lots more, but energy is there's such a vastness to hands-on healing. Anybody, and in fact, Paul, anybody can do hands-on healing. If you think about it, you do hands-on healing, and anybody who at your office does hands-on healing with their own hands. It may not be direct, but they're working with energy, hands-on energy. When Lucia and I went over to your office to get the IV treatments, Amy was very careful. She was very meticulous on what she's doing, and she did it with care and with love. And from my perspective, she's working energetically on making it feel good and have a good experience. Yeah. I think. And that's kind of, what we led up to today with, was that there's a lot of levels of doing this, and it's really all the same thing you're doing, but it's just, I think people who are in direct contact with sick people, like nurses and people like Amy and our doctors and anybody else, you can either go into the encounter, as it were, like you were saying, in a good place for that, or you can bring all your crap in with it. And people feel that. They literally, they may not
they may not vocalize it.
Well,
but
I don't know if Amy. Well, this is it. Now, because people might not realize what's going on in the moment, and they might not realize it unless you're going to see someone. You and I have talked about me coming into your office maybe once in a while and working with people, which we still have to talk about and do. But people, unless you're going there intentionally to get something, they might not recognize that that's what's actually happening. Amy, for instance, Amy with G-Man, she years ago she called me and asked me to work on him remotely, and I don't know how many years ago it was. I don't know if she ever told you about that or not. But I said yeah. I said I'd love to. So I started working on him remotely, and she said within 15 or 20 minutes he was already feeling better.
Yeah, I think I remember that. So just for the listeners, so they know, Amy's son we call G or G-Man. We're not talking about Treasury agents or any government people like that. So
he could be. You never know. I mean,
we're not at that level yet.
That's right.
Yeah. So he was little and he had some stuff going on. And I think that one of the things I wanted to kind of bounce from is, I want to underscore what you just said, and that is, I had the experience in my much younger life, probably actually about when you went to that first thing, that healing event.
Oh, in the 90s, yeah.
Yeah, in the 90s. It's actually
back in the 1900s.
Yeah, I mean, this was actually in the 80s.
Okay.
I mean, it's even before
that. Ooh.
That.
Yeah.
But I had this experience where, I grew up around doctors, and I owned a lab, and I was around scientific people, all this stuff. And when our older kids were little, we were really having trouble because they were just sick all the time, and my mom said, you should go see this other doctor. He's an integrative doctor and all this stuff. And I thought, oh boy, and I just didn't know what this guy did. And
right.
And he, to be fair to him, he was not super out there or anything, right. But it was the 80s, so it wasn't quite trendy to be doing stuff.
Yeah.
But I had this overwhelming feeling so we took the kids there first, and eventually I went to see him, for my allergies and stuff. And,
sure.
And I just, every time I left his office, I had this overwhelming feeling that I have no idea why I feel this way, but I feel hopeful and like more light when I left. And I'm sure the kids felt it on their level, but it was just, even without me being a patient, it was like just the energy of that guy's office and the way he did what he did. I mean, he was good at what he did, but just the way that you left. And I thought, I've been to so many doctors that, you leave and you feel like, you were sort of an imposition to them or something like that. And, so I think that on that, me to you in the same room or in the same building or whatever, that's like almost everyone's felt that, whether they, even if you don't think you've felt it, think back to experiences with whether it's a nurse or a doctor or EMS or, someone you were hurting, you came out on the other side feeling one way or the other. And the thing I wanted, because I know we got some time, but not a ton left, and I promised the listeners that we would get to this. So I want to make a leap, actually.
Yeah, go for it.
I have personally seen this happen, and I don't have good explanations, and that's not necessary really. But I think you have examples of people doing similar things, like say your experience with you and Jaden, or what Amy did, with caring for you guys and all that stuff, only not even in the same, town or
right.
or country or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the area where people like, either people are into that or it like really freaks them out.
Right.
And my feeling, or I guess understanding, little as it is it's really the same thing that's going on as that feeling you have when you're face to face, only we're just not face to face.
Right.
And, maybe I think you've had some awesome, kind of personal examples of doing that with people.
Yeah.
And maybe one of those, and maybe your take on, what's going on there.
Right.
How do we get there?
Okay, sure. So, okay. Well, first of all, let's talk about energy for a second. Energy knows no bounds, knows no time, knows no distance. Energy is energy is energy. Can we agree to that?
I do.
Okay. So let's just, for the sake of you and I having a conversation, not worry about what the listeners are thinking. It's just that we are having this dialogue. So energy is energy is energy. And so when a person tunes into another person, they're just trying to tap into that person's energy. They're not, for me, I'm tapping into that person's energy. I'm tapping into, okay, is that the person I'm tuning into? Yes, it is. Now, how do I know that it's that person's energy? Because maybe sometimes I'll be on the phone with them and I'm going to do a session with them and I'll go, and maybe I'm seeing some objects around them or feeling some objects around them that all of a sudden stick out because I want validation because the last thing I want to do is tune into somebody that's not there.
Right.
I want to tune into somebody energetically that's there, and then this indeed is the person I'm working with. So I will often, try and make sure, define it to a place of going, yes, this is where I need to be. Okay, so that being said, in a not so perfect world, I've got them and I've tapped into them. Now I want to work on them energetically. Now, based on what I said earlier, energy is energy is energy. There's no time, distance, or anything between energy because it's all connected into one place. Everything's connected. If you and I are having a dialogue, and I say to you, okay, let me see what's going on with Paul's right knee. Why? Is there something going on with Paul's right knee? I don't know. But let me ask Paul. Paul, you got something going on with your right knee?
No.
Okay, and that's
not right now.
No, but I'm just giving that as an example. Let's say, for instance, so let's just use you as an example. For instance, let me just tap into your energy, see where I'm at now. Because you and I know each other as well. I'm going to tap into your energy, and I know, okay, that's Paul's energy. Okay, that's who he is. That's where he's at. Okay, let's just tap into, and now I'm going to go. Where is most of the energy based on when I'm tuning into you? For real this time, not just guessing at your knee, but when I'm really tuning into you and looking at your energy, because now there's no, there's physical distance between us, but energetically there's no distance.
Right.
So now I'm going to ask and see where the energy is that's mostly around where you're at. Now, for some reason I can say this, not for some reason I can say this, I can say this, but for some reason I'm wanting all the energy that I'm tuning into you is all around the back of your neck and your shoulders. Like there seems to be a lot of energy there. There doesn't have to be anything wrong physically, but that's just where I'm seeing and feeling a lot of energy around you is the back of your neck and your shoulders. And I don't know if that resonates for you or not, or if it's something that has not manifested physically yet, but there's a lot of energy around your neck and shoulders for some reason. So I'm just going to tell you that.
Yep.
That's what I'm experiencing with you right now. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. And I think for the sake of the listeners, we absolutely didn't talk about any of this ahead of time.
Okay.
And I have no idea how I did it, but this morning when I went to get out of bed and rolled over onto my shoulder, both shoulders and my neck were just really tight. I think I slept wrong on them or something.
Oh, okay.
And so I went out and exercised and loosened them up, but there's still some, if I was to say I had discomfort anywhere or dysfunction, it's kind of straight through that area.
Okay.
From shoulder to shoulder, straight across. And
right.
So that's
so that's where when I'm tuning into energy, that's where all the energy goes. And that's where my attention goes to that particular. Where's the energy mostly gathering? There's a whole field of energy around you, but where is it all gathering around? Well, it's because of your shoulders and your neck. A lot of the energy needs to be there to keep things in check, if you will, on a physical level. So let's just go in, because we got time. Let's just go in, and I'm going to just do a couple things with you energetically right here for the listener's sake. Okay, so just take a deep breath, just breathe out, and let's see what we got going on. Okay. All right, so what I'm doing right now is I'm looking for a picture. I'm looking for something that's going to bring you joy, going to bring you a sense of relaxation, a sense of nothing to worry about, nothing to think about, nothing to be about, just in a relaxed place. Okay, so for whatever reason, and you can help me with this one, but for whatever reason, and I'm just going to place it in your shoulders now, this picture. I'm making sound effects for radio.
Yes, since no one can see what
that's
we're
right.
doing.
No one can see what I'm doing.
Great.
Yeah. I do throw lightning bolts once in a while too, by the way, and that's another topic of discussion. All right, so there's the picture, there's the picture, there's the picture. Put it in there. Let's solidify it. Let's nail it down. Okay, and 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, a little resistance to have that. So you must have resistance to relaxing these days. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right, take it in. That's it. There you go. You probably feel the difference in your shoulders within the next probably 10, 15 minutes, I imagine, or you might feel it right away. I never know. I don't like to predict how soon or how long it will take for your shoulders to feel a little sense of relief in there. But just to give you an example, the pictures that I kept putting in, I kept seeing mountains, summertime mountains, covered in a little bit of snow, but blue skies, green grass, green trees, an open field. It's kind of like a valley type of thing. You know what made me think of? It made me think of Banff. When there's a certain point of the highway, you get to Banff, and it's like a carpet of green, and you see mountains on either side.
Yep.
And for some reason, that is something that makes you go. For some reason, I feel like in that instant, that's, not. Some people like ocean water. Like, my wife, she loves to go to the ocean, but sometimes I've given her stuff that doesn't make her feel relaxed. And, so anyways, my point being is that that's the picture that I got, and that's the picture that I put. That's the energy of that picture is what I put into your shoulders. It's
very interesting because that picture actually has a relationship to a couple of things. Here's the interesting thing also, is I was trying to just sit here and be silent and receptive, instead of, throwing a ball or something. My shoulders relaxed reasonably well as I sort of just took it in. Yeah. The middle part where my neck is, where I have a little more damage from some old accidents. Yeah. It's taking a little bit more time, but here's what's and this may be actually some sort of connection that you can talk about, but there's a particular type of kind of a long form meditation that I do periodically, and I do it when I really feel like I need to just separate myself and just get to the core of either a problem or, need better solutions, or just to get to the core of something that's, either that or maybe something where, what's a good next step. And it's based around visualizing going up and down a mountain with the green, kind of the Banff-ish thing all around it going on. And that's sort of like when I do that particular, and it takes a while because it's, you go to different places and all that business. Yeah, for sure. But that visual is very well entrenched because I use the same visualization every time. And I do I find that obviously because you're, meditating while you're doing it. Yeah. I find that a very relaxing place. I usually come out feeling totally different. So it's interesting that's the the visual that came up.
It's not surprising to me. It's not surprising to me, Paul. But thank you for sharing that because I don't really, here's two things. I don't really need the validation on one hand, but the other hand, I like to get it because I like to know what I'm doing right and what's working and what's not working. Now, as we've been talking, as soon as you mentioned your middle back, I've been doing a little circular motion, okay, and I've been pulling stuff out of your back, out of your center, between your shoulder blades and around your neck. And what I've been feeling like, what I've been pulling out of there, and maybe you can explain this because you know your body better than I do, but what I've been pulling out are threads. I feel like I've been pulling on threads, like things that are, I want to say, it feels like to me someone's taken a razor blade to your tendons or whatever there, and it's kind of just taken some of the stuff off, but they've left it on there, so I'm just peeling the rest off to get it away because it feels like it's burning against your skin somehow. So I'm pulling these things out, I'm just pulling these things out that makes it go, the sense I got, Paul, honestly, was I'm pulling this out because this is what's making things tight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that part of where your neck meets your upper back, I've had some real high speed head trauma, and that doesn't surprise anyone. But if you look at all of my spine, but especially the neck and where the neck and the upper back meet, it looks like I'm about 90 years old. It's got that much arthritis in it from all these traumas.
Like kind of burrs, like it's got kind of burrs in it. Okay, that's what that's what I was kind of sensing, and I was like pulling these burrs out because that's what's preventing you from feeling that relaxation in your neck. That like, okay,
yeah, it's that, and then of course because you're still alive, but the bones are not right. Then the muscles and the tendons they get kind of gristly. Basically, that's a horrible medical definition, but that's basically what happens. And so you get adhesions and stringy, stuff like that.
Okay, so that's what I've been pulling up. There seems to be a lot. Yeah. So I've just been winding them around my finger. A long time. Well, I've just been winding them around my finger and pulling them out energetically, because once they're gone energetically, then it allows the physical to start healing.
Yeah.
To start the process. So I hope that gives you then the listeners an example of something long distance where you're not there, because energy knows no distance, knows no time, knows no boundaries.
Exactly. I think that's a great example. Now, an example of me not knowing where I am right now. How much time do we have left?
We got time. We got 3 minutes. So I do want to share one more example for the listeners. If we go over a little over, that's fine. We can go over on this. It's fine. Not a big deal. We can go right to we can make it 8 minutes, and I'm fine with that. Another example is I had a client a long time ago, and she had fallen down the stairs and wrecked her knee, and either she popped it out of place or she did something to it. She called me up. She says, I'm on my way over. She says, do you have time right now that you can do some hands-on healing for me? And I said, yeah. I said, what happened? And she said, well, I fell down the stairs and I banged my knee up. I said, all right, well, come on over. Let's see what we can do. I said, I don't know if I'll be able to do anything for you, but let's, if you can make it over here, that's fine. Can you drive? She says, oh yeah, I can drive. It's just that I can't move I got to be careful about how I do. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll start working on you on your way over here. And I said, what color is your car and what kind of car is it, so I can have a better visualization of you sitting in your car while you're driving. And so she told me, and I said, okay, well, I said, I'm going to start working on you. So I started working on her knee right away, and I got a call about probably 15 or 20 minutes later. She was in Seattle, and at that time it was going to take her at least 45 minutes to get to me because it was rush hour coming home. And so coming back to Bellevue. And I said, okay, well, I said, I answered the phone. I said, hey, where are you? She says, I don't need to come now. I says, I'll just send you what I owe you. And I said, what are you talking about? I said, you haven't even gotten here. And well, she says, my knee's better now. I said, what? She says, yeah, whatever you were doing, she says, it's okay now. I can bend my knee, and I felt something move in my knee. And I said, well, was it a bone or something that moved? She said, no. I felt some energy moving around in my leg all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden it felt better. For someone to ask me to explain that, Paul, I really can't. I can't explain that other than I can say, look, when I work with people, my expectations are that anything that I'm bringing forth when it comes to the energy from Source or God, whatever you want to call it, it's not coming from me. It's coming from someplace better than me, someplace more with a higher vibration than me. I'm just a conduit for the energy to move through. So, when people, and this is where, well, why should I pay you then if you're not doing it? Well, I'm the channel and it's using my time. So, well, you
do have to value people's
that's
time.
Right. You have to value people's
whether
time.
They are there or not.
But that's another example of something long distance, because again, energy knows no bounds. I mean, if the people that are listening to this show right now and maybe to the podcast later, think about somebody you know, and then just think about them and visualize them in your head. This is a good exercise for you. Visualize them in your head. Think about who they are. Think about them without judgment. Don't think, oh, that person, I sure wish they wouldn't do that. Don't think like that. Think of just the person. It's the person themselves. Think of, like right now, if I was to tune into Lori, your wife, right now, right. I tune into her right now. Let's see. Okay, I've met her. I know her. Where is she at right now? I feel like she just needs a nap.
That could very well be true.
I don't know if she's with you or not, but I just feel like
she's not around.
Okay. She just feels like she could use a nap right about now. She's a little spent, so she needs a little rejuvenation. You know your wife better than I do, so I don't know if that would be accurate or not for her, but that's where she's at. Otherwise, she's in a good place. So this is what I'm telling people. Just think about somebody you know, and then get your perceptions, write them down, and then call them. If you want to validate it, call them, and then you'll understand. Because a lot of times what we feel about somebody, in fact, it's sometimes when you feel something about somebody, you're tapping into an energy source that you're going, oh, that guy's creepy, or that person's a little weird. Trust
exactly.
that. You're tapping into energy there that you might not be aware of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways.
Definitely important. Well, I think, as we wrap up, I think it's really, it's nice we could end this group of 8 discussions about all kinds of energy this way, because I think, for some people they've experienced this or they do it or whatever. And then for other people, this just seems bizarre, kind of like, your mom wondering why there were green people or whatever.
Yeah. Exactly. People, and this is it. This is the whole thing, Paul. For some people, this is not going to resonate at all, especially doctors. A lot of doctors out there that don't. They'll just go like, "What are you talking about? Are you crazy?"
That's okay.
That's
more common.
That's okay. I mean, I have, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
No, it is okay, but there's I felt like it would be a disservice to the listeners to not include the other end of the spectrum, because we sort of worked all the way across the spectrum, and then we get to this, and it's not that people have to buy into it or not or whatever. I know I've seen it and experienced it.
Well, you just experienced it firsthand again.
Right. Just right here we didn't pre-plan that.
No, that was no pre-plan.
And so I think it's one of those things where if we're trying to find better answers and more answers and all of that sort of thing, especially for people that are chronically ill, or maybe they have cancer or some other, real debilitating thing, in my mind, it's always worth keeping your mind open to anything that might help you. Yeah. So.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well,
listen,
I think
one thing
have to go.
We do, and I just want to say thank you, Paul, for being such a great sport and having me on your show today, and And it's a good experience to be interviewed by you. And I don't know how many questions you got in, because I'm sure I took over the whole thing. But thank you for allowing me to be here today with you.
That's what happens when you interview me. I talk a lot, so I was ready. I was ready for that today, and really, I think people's experience is the most important thing, and then everything else comes after that. And I know that I've known that you do this kind of work. I've seen it, and I can't begin to explain it or understand most of it, but I think people who have experience doing stuff like that are better to hear from than people who are conjecturing about it. So thank you for doing that for us.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yep. All right. Well, we will wind up Medicine and Health with Dr. Paul Anderson today, and we finished our 8 installments in the energy, the sequence about energy with Cameron Steele today, and I really want to thank you for coming on the program. So we'll see you all on the podcast or live next week.
You've been listening to Medicine and Health with your host, Dr. Paul Anderson. Visit the clinic website at www.amsa1.com or call the clinic at 206-629-2186.